Pakistan and Afghanistan recently sat down for talks in Istanbul, and the next round is scheduled for November 6th. But in the meantime, both sides have thrown some really tough statements at each other. And these talks are actually going to, do you think that these talks are actually going to move things optimistically, and we would witness a permanent thaw?
Well, I'm more optimistic now than I was several days ago, in that when the most recent round of talks took place, they essentially collapsed, and it sounded like there was not going to be an agreement. But the fact that the two sides at the final hour did come together and agreed to extend the ceasefire, and more importantly, or equally importantly, they agreed to keep talking. That, I think, was important because it indicated that neither side is ready to throw in the towel, so to speak. And I think that what's also important about the outcome of the most recent talks is that the fact that they're going to continue talking creates the space for confidence-building measures. And in that regard, I think it's very important that the Torkham border crossing was recently opened. I'm still skeptical. I am not confident that the Taliban will be willing to curb the TTP in ways that Pakistan would like to see. But the fact that they're going to continue to keep talking is very significant and gives some reason for hope.
Michael, Pakistan keeps stressing security concerns and cross-border skirmishes, which is genuine concern. Do you see any real likelihood that the current Taliban regime will take palpable steps on this end, or is this going to stay stuck in the same cycle? Because when I spoke to one of the top officials in diplomacy, and when I asked about the confidence building measures that you just mentioned, he was not very hopeful, and he said that two countries only can have confidence building measures on the table when there is a system on the other side, when there is bureaucracy, administration, hierarchy, and as we don't have that in Afghanistan, so he was not very hopeful.
I mean, for me, the biggest concern is the Taliban's approach to terrorist organizations. The Taliban, there's been a historical pattern of this. The Taliban are not willing to turn against their closest militant allies, and the most prominent example that many have cited in recent days is Al-Qaeda, right? Even when faced with the risk of a U.S. military invasion, the Taliban refused to curb Al-Qaeda, which then precipitated the U.S. intervention in Afghanistan. I would also argue that the Taliban fears that if they were to take steps to curb P, that there could be a risk of an internal rebellion within the Taliban, in the sense that Taliban rank and file view TTP as allies, as friends, and that the Taliban would not want to risk any type of internal fractures. This is a group that faces no external threat to its political survival, but it does worry about internal rifts. So basically what I'm saying is that it would take a lot, it would take a whole lot to get the Taliban to agree to either expel the TTP or to curb it, or whatever the case might be. So this will require unusually adept diplomacy and persuasion on the part of Pakistan to try to convince the Taliban to address this very serious issue of TTP terrorism.
And is this why do you think that this ceasefire is fragile and we cannot expect much out of it?
The ceasefire, no, I mean, this is different, right? I mean, the ceasefire is very important. So we had seen, of course, the deadliest violence between Afghanistan and Pakistan since 2021 when the Taliban came back to power. So it is absolutely essential that the ceasefire remain in place. And it does seem that the Taliban are committed to doing what they can to maintain that. But my concern is that the core issue driving this crisis, driving these tensions between Afghanistan and Pakistan, is the Taliban's unwillingness to curb the TTP. And that's where I think that we cannot expect much forward movement. But certainly if they could keep meeting and at least agree to keep the ceasefire in place, that's important. Though, of course, as you know, there have been several terrorist attacks targeting Pakistani security forces over the last few days, even after the two sides agreed to keep the ceasefire going.
सब्सक्राइब करें और बेल दबाएं ताकि कोई खबर रह न जाए।